I've been told by everybody up on this roof that they're all off the roof. I am on the roof of exposure 4. Got fire through the roof of the fire building in the entire rear section.
Now remember, given the payday, has he been accounted for? Kate.
610B. That was the Mayday. 610B.
I'm here. We got a fire. 1.5-story, single-family dwelling. Fire shown from the second floor. Give me a second alarm on this.
Coming up to the top floor. I got people hanging out the top floor windows with a baby.
Commercial building. A lot of fire, a lot of smoke. Go ahead and strike a third alarm on my orders on this.
Got people on the front fire escape here with windows vented below them. We need somebody up there.
Yeah, let them know we got a job. I'm pulling up now. Second alarm, I got a 1-story single-family frame. Heavy fire showing from the attic.
So we're using all hands. We got one line stretch, fire on the 4th floor, second line being stretched. Primary searches are underway.
Hey, welcome to Old School. I'm Chief Rick Lasky, along with my good buddy, Chief John Salka. And John, I've talked, I brag on you. Wherever we go, I brag on you. You're my best friend, and it's easy to brag on you. And you just hit, what was it, just your 40th? It would have been your 40th anniversary with the FDNY 40 years ago. Now, you've been doing this, you've been in the fire service for 43 years, right? Roughly about 43 years, volunteering career. And you 40 years ago is when you got into the FDNY, correct?
Correct.
Right. So
76, I joined the Volleys when I was just a senior in high school in Mineola out there in Long Island. And a couple of years later, 79, I got on the FDNY. This actually yesterday was the actual 40th anniversary of my being sworn in.
Well, wait. There's a whole nother section there we just left out there, buddy. Where you went from Mineola, Long Island. I'm going to ask you, do me a favor for our listeners, because a lot of guys ask this, John. A lot of guys are planning their careers and thinking about their futures, or where, a lot of young guys like you and I were a long time ago say, I wonder where we'll be one day in this whole fire service business. So you started as a volunteer in Mineola and Long Island, all right? And then where did you go before the FDNY? What was your first career job?
Another thing that came up, and my daughter Maureen put on Facebook as well about my 40 years, and she included Mineola, she included Titusville, Florida. So what happened was, on the Volleys with my buddy Richie Bonnets and a whole bunch of other great people. That's a town I was born and raised in. I knew everybody, went to high school with all the young guys, and in the Volleys, having a great time. And then we went on vacation, he and I, with no intention of doing anything other than driving down to Florida. And we did in my CJ5 of all things. Oh, my God.
CJ5.
A small Jeep. We bounced all the way down to Florida. I think it was spring break. We had no reservations for anything, for hotels or anything else. We just drove down like two young idiots that we were. And I think we slept a couple of nights in the Jeep because there was no hotels and whatever. But what we did notice was all the firehouses were paid. Every place we went, there were guys in uniform on duty. And being young volunteers from Long Island, with limited experience, we thought the whole world was damn volunteers. We didn't think everybody was, So anyway, we started stopping by a couple of these places, and everybody was very friendly. I can't quite remember where we were, but up near Daytona Beach and stuff. And guys told us, oh, yeah, you need to go to the state academy. You need to get state certified in Florida. You can't just join a fire department and then train you up and go to work. No, you got to have a state certification. Mind you now, this is 40 years ago. 77, 78 in the state of Florida, you had to have a state 200-hour certificate to work anywhere in the state. That's a long time ago. And I think now it's up to like 600 hours, some other larger number. But make a long story short, go ahead.
But Florida has always been leaders when it comes to the certifications and the training of firefighters. I mean, it is now, but even back then they were on the forefront.
That's what I'm saying. And they had a physical that was even tougher than most written exams. And so these guys tell us, you got to go to Ocala. It's a state fire academy, Florida State Fire Academy. You got to go for the minimum standards, 200-hour course, which is what we saw. As soon as we got home, we started looking it up. Of course, there was no computers or nothing back then, but we started looking it all up. And we both registered, signed up, enrolled. I think we had to pay about $50, $50 each of us had to pay per week for that class.
Wow.
We were out of state. If you were in state, it's covered. In state, it was a free. You just go to the fire academy and get it. So it was, 200 hours. It was just 4 weeks long. And but along with all the technical stuff, hose and axes and tools, and they also get you ready for the physical, which was quite demanding. Sit-ups and push-ups and a run and all sorts of other stuff. It's so demanding that lots of people didn't pass it. Anyway, we got done, graduated, You buy the newspaper. You look for firefighter jobs, like you look for printer's job or truck driver jobs. And we filed and took tests in Hillsborough County and Tampa and Titusville, and I think one more place. And sure enough, a couple of days later, we're staying in a motel in Titusville now because they give you the results right away. It's not like up here with civil service where you wait a month and then take something else. You wait a month and take something else. And we got a call from Richard Cherry. God rest his soul. He passed away just about 2 days ago.
Wow, wow.
We got a call from Richard Cherry saying, John Salka, this is Chief Cherry from Titusville Fire Department. How'd you like to be a fireman? You know? And we started like 2 days later. Come on down tomorrow, get your badges and your uniforms. And we were
Holy
like,
cow.
You know?
Holy cow.
It was amazing. It was like emergency. It was like, you know, being on Johnny Gage, you know?
Well, you know, like most of the volunteers I know, they're into it, and you know, they live, eat, and breathe it. And a lot of the young ones, you know, the young guys and gals, they you know, a lot of them do have that dream, John, of one day becoming a career firefighter. So I can't imagine I know excitement I had when I got
excited right now talking about it.
And the guys at Titusville, the people there, a lot of them that have been around for a while still remember you. You know
what? We I don't know what we did, but, you know, two hooples from New York, you know, at the New York, we were young guys. We were in Valley. So, you know what? We had some good background already before we went to Ocala, before we graduated. So it's not like we were sharp or anything, but we had some skills, you know. And I guess they got a kick out of us with our accent, and we were sort of funny. We were two young single guys, and we had a great time. We made some pretty good friends. Fred Yachts being one of them. We're still friends with Fred. Richie and I both visited him recently. Like last year, he came up to Manhattan with his wife and another couple for a week on vacation, and we stopped one night and met with them and went out to dinner and all. And so, yeah, we made some lifelong friends and had a great. We weren't there for very long. I was there for less than 2 years.
And I saw the picture. Now the picture, like Maureen posted a bunch of pictures, which were awesome. One of them, you and one of your buddies stand next to an old American LaFrance, man. Beautiful rig.
Not one of my buddies. That's Richie Bonnets. That's the guy that I lived with. That was the guy from Mineola Fire Department that went down there with me, and he came back and got on the FDNY as well. Yeah, we shared an apartment, and that was an in-service rig, that American LaFrance right there. That was Station 3 in Titusville.
Yeah, so that's the Titusville pumper you were standing next to.
Oh, yeah. We drove that. Yeah.
Golly. Sorry.
Titusville, I don't want to call it a flash in the pan, although from the perspective of the calendar it was, but it was a great place that I it was my first career job. You know, I never forgot it.
And everywhere we go, I love when you tell that, because you love, you know, a lot of guys, you know, I've been with LA or Chicago for this on, they don't ever really tell you about where it all started and where they came from. And you love talking about, you know, being a Valley in Long Island, you tell that story, and you love talking about your experiences in Titusville. It's just, I think that's awesome.
FDNY was my third fire department. It was the third fire department I was in. Wow. You know, second career. But
so how long were you How long were you there? How long were you in Titusville?
Oh, I think I was there about 18 months or 20 months or something. It wasn't. I don't think it was 2 years.
All right, but it seems a lot longer.
Oh my God, I feel like I was there 5 years. and Tom Barker and Bill Davis, and I could just recite the names like I was there forever. Yeah.
All right. So growing up on Long Island, you know, you watched Emergency and all the shows and everything else, and you were just. But I know the dream was to be an FDNY firefighter, to work for.
No, actually, my dream was to be a Nassau County cop.
That's right. Let me. Yep. I always forget that because both you and I were cops, or what I was. I actually did it, but I know you. Oh man, I
went to college. I went to State University in New York at Farmingdale for criminal justice. And I was in an Explorer post at the Nassau County Police Headquarters, and we had uniforms and everything. And let me tell you, baby, I was on the hook. I was going. And I was in the Valleys. You know, I joined the volunteer fire department when I was still in high school. So I had the gear, and I had the leather helmet, and I had the siren and the fire trucks, and I want to be a cop.
And I could picture you with the 5-star hat that they wear and all the frickin' medals from your shield and all your cop stuff.
Man, we had the helmet, we had the hat and everything. We had everything. We had the uniform. It was pretty cool. You know? And my buddy Rich Bonnets, who I went to Titusville with, convinced me to take the FDNY test. Come on, take it. Now, his girl at the time, Peggy Hayes, I remember her name. Her dad apparently was a battalion chief. And so that was his. Now, of all things, Richie Bonnett's dad was a PD sergeant, NYPD highway patrol sergeant, you know. But he wanted to be a fireman, and he just kept after me, and he just reminded me recently. Last time I spoke to him, he said, "Don't you remember? We went on the last day of filing, the last day, and we drove into New York City. We stopped at a firehouse. The last application they have. Oh, there's the last one we got. Okay, you got it. They gave me an application, went home and filled it out and had it stamped and notarized that day and got it in on time. And that's how I took the FDNY test because at his urging, at his constant urging. Come on, take it.
And isn't it funny, John? You know, I started out as a police explorer. You've heard me tell that story 1,000 times about Frank Sinicki. He's passed on, but I'm where I'm at because a cop cared enough about some dirtbag little kid that was getting into trouble to take care of me, you know, him and a dispatcher, and I ended up getting in the fire service, and you know, as a young age in high school, and then cop. Well, I was waiting to get hired as a firefighter, paramedic, and so on. And now we're talking. You started as a volley. You went to Titusville, Florida, which you could have very well been in Florida forever, your whole life. It's a wonderful state, a great fire service. We both love going there. We have lots of friends there. But your dream was to be a cop. But now, all right. So now you filed. You're going to take the test for the FDNY. Now you and I have talked about our good friend John Mittendorf. We both love Chief Mittendorf from LA City. What a wonderful man. We both love John, and we talk about passion for the job. And John's been on our shows, John, where he's talked about remember he wasn't tall enough. Remember that story? He said he went down to take the City of Los Angeles exam, and he was like an inch and a quarter like short, and he had ridiculous rules back then about height and everything. So he comes back, and his dad's like, don't worry about that. We'll fix it. I already set you up for your next physical 2 weeks, and I'll do it again. He goes, we're going to do it first thing in the morning because you're longer in the morning because your spine and when you sleep and everything else. And remember this. So he took him to the chiropractor, remember? And the chiropractor and his old man built a wooden freaking rack with ropes and shit. And they would tie him to this rack all day long and stretch him. And that morning, 2 weeks later, remember, they're on the way down to the city. Could you imagine today with cell phones? They're driving, and they got him strapped to the plywood rack in the back of people are blowing their horns, pointing in the back of the pickup truck. You got a guy tied down there.
That would be on live TV. That would be on live TV.
It'd be the OJ Bronco thing. We're following a pickup truck now, and he's got someone tied down. He won't pull over. They got there. You know, boom. He did a thing, boom, and think about that. We would have never had John Mittendorf in our life. What a sad story that would have been. So you're taking your physical, and I got to ask you to, you know, if you want to tell the story, it's up to you. It's a great story.
I think we should move on.
Okay, we'll move on. Anyway, you get hired, and everything was on the up and up. I mean, there was no. You know,
there is no anything but up and up on the FDNY New York City civil service exams. You take the test, the results come out, the list numbers come out. They're published in a civil service newspaper. Name, average, grade. There's no jumping ahead of anybody or anything.
And I'll put it this way: you know, as a young kid, young firefighter, we always make mistakes, or we show up. You know, it's just like. And you were lucky you had a senior guy from the FDNY kind of help you with some advice to get, you know, John. You need to pay attention, do this, and so on and so forth, blah, blah, blah. So now you're on the FDNY. You're on the FDNY as a probie. And for I think a lot of young firefighters love hearing from a lot of the senior guys like yourself about your career. So where did you get first assigned?
Yeah, so I have to go through the academy. I'm trying to remember what the academy was, 6 or 8 weeks. It was ridiculously short back then. Graduated right after the new year. Got hired in November into December. Must have been 8 weeks then. Like January 3rd or something like that, we went to the firehouse, which was good. And I went to 34 engine with 21 truck on West 38th Street in Midtown Manhattan, which was, you know, I was so excited to be on the FDNY. I don't want to say the numbers meant nothing to me, but I really didn't know what was busy and what wasn't busy. And I didn't know anybody to help me get anywhere. Like I've helped many guys over my career.
But let me ask you though. I got to ask you, okay. You described the feeling you had when you graduated the academy. Let's back up. Let's go back. I mean, the day you're on your way to your fight. You know what I'm saying? That the pounding in your chest. I mean, it had to be exhilarating.
Oh my God, I can still remember that feeling. How exciting that was, being in the dress uniform, not the dress, but the Class B, the nice trousers and a dress shirt and the bell cap. And there you are, man, with an FDNY patch. And now, of course, back then they gave you like these yellow slickers and like, my goodness, civil defense black, Tupperware helmets. That's what you're trained in for the whole academy. You didn't get your leather helmet and your black turnout coat with the stripes till like 4 days before you left. And so now they are graduating. You got this brand new leather helmet. You got a turnout coat, with the brand new stripes, brand new boots. Of course, it was boots and coat and helmet back then. And it was just exciting. The front piece, of course, had the orange, the orange Proby thing on it. And I went to 34 Engine, drove over to the firehouse in Manhattan, which was, because I had no idea where anything was in the city. I was a Long Island boy,
Well, it's bad enough you guys have like 300 firehouses that you have to get a map to find sometimes, and they're hidden, some of them in neighborhoods and that. But so you're at 34 Engine. How long were you there?
Oh, I got right out of there, man. I was at 34 Engine. When I walked in that first day, I don't remember a whole lot about it, but believe it or not, I was terribly, excited and terribly disappointed at the same time, because once you get the number, once you get your assignment, everybody looks them up. 34 Engine was, in fact, the slowest engine in Manhattan.
Oh, wow.
There wasn't a slower company. There wasn't an engine that did less runs than 34 Engine. I was, but I just got on the FDNY. So I'm so excited about getting on a job, and I'm so disappointed about the assignment. So listen, what are you going to do? I was still there. I still was a Proby. I still had to perform. I still, it was a whole firehouse full of guys there, including 7 or 8 other Probies that were there, 2 months ahead of me, 4 months ahead of me, 6 months ahead of me, and stuff like that. So, I fell right in and met a bunch of guys there that I got to know, and be friends with. And most guys that were there that didn't want to stay there all got out of there. We all got out of there. We all went to 26 truck and 11 truck and 26 Engine and all the other places that guys.
Well, where did you go after that then?
Well, it took me a while, and I can't quite remember. Pete Riccardi was a big Italian guy. He was from 6 Truck, believe it or not, where Jay Jonas ended up being the captain and the World Trade Center.
FDNY hires Italian guys.
Oh yeah. So he was the Manhattan Borough trustee for the Firefighters Union, and I got involved with the union as well. In other words, trying to get out of there. And I'm not quite sure why he helped me or how he helped me, but I had no time on the job at all. And I put in for 11 Truck. I got 11 Truck, which is absolutely unbelievable.
That's a great company, right?
Absolutely. One of the greatest companies on the job. At the time, the couple of years right before then, it had been right up there at the top, number one. And, and runs and workers and stuff like that. And they even asked me when I got there, how the hell did you get here? Frankly, I don't know, but I gotta give Pete Riccardi a tip of the helmet. Pete's passed on as well a couple of years ago, but great guy. I had to listen to all his union nonsense during your conversations, but he came through for me, and I got out of there, and I never looked back. It was a great place. Yeah.
Well, now, so all right. And let me ask you before I want you to tell a story real quick, but you went from 11 Truck. Where was your next stop?
Actually, I stayed at 11 Truck for like 4 years, and I went to Rescue 3 from 11 Truck.
Okay, so time out. We talk in class about, with company officers, with firefighters, about tool assignments and carrying your tools and take care of your tools and never giving up your tools. You never give up the nozzle. You listen to your company officer, to your boss. You follow him or her anywhere. You follow the senior guy, that guy or gal, and but you never, you're right. I used to tell people, I said, don't ever touch my Halligan. Don't ever, I remember Jeff Welch. Jeff just passed away. God bless him. You remember Jeff. I remember Jeff putting his gear back in his buggy as a chief up in Hayden, Idaho, and some young firefighter went to help him just to pick up his tool. He goes, hey, don't ever touch my tool again. And it was one of those things. So you got to tell the story with your whole Halligan tool, that thing.
Great story. Actually, it wasn't a Halligan. It was a
hook.
And it was and the story is, we had this. I'm imagining it was a vacant building. We had a lot of vacant building fires back then. A lot of fires of every kind, but wow, a lot of vacant buildings, and they were always good working fires. So one day we had, I believe it was a top floor fire in a 6-story old law tenement, and we were there working and pulling ceilings, and the engine was hitting the hot spots and all that, and it was just great. I can smell it. It was great. And I'm there with the whole company, my lieutenant, probably Jerry Kelly and Richie Bartow. Richie Bartow was also one of my senior men. He was like the chauffeur, the senior guy on a shift that I worked on. I would have to say most of the time that I was there. Richie also just unfortunately passed away just in September, and I didn't even find out about it till November. Richie was a very quiet, personal guy, and he didn't want to share information, so they really didn't make any announcements or anything. When it appeared on a department order was when people saw it, But anyway, Richie was a great guy, very, very low-key guy, very quiet guy, never sitting down. You never see him sitting down anywhere. He was always walking around the firehouse. No matter when you saw him, he was walking by, sticking his head in the room that you were in studying or whatever. And anyway, so he's up there with us, and we're all doing something, and he says, hey, give me a hook. Pass it over. I said, no. Richie, what do you need? Just pass it over. I got something right here. I'll hand it right back to you. I said, Richie, you're not getting my hook. What do you need? Because I was the can man, because I was the Johnny. I had the can and the 6-foot hook. Just give me the hook for a second. I'm right here. I'll give it right back to you. Come on. And he got me. So I reach in, I hand him the hook, 6-foot hook. And he just turns and wings it, throws it right out the back window. Right out the back window into the backyard, all the way 6 stories down.
Chucked it out the window.
So
what happened then?
Well, I mean, obviously I had to go down and get it. I don't even know if my lieutenant saw it or didn't see it. I said, Dad, I got to go downstairs, Lou. And I walked out, made my way downstairs, all the way down to 6 flights, out the front door, but he's there looking, The man post, chief's out front looking. And I go down the alley and go out the back and get my hook and go walking back up. It was a ridiculous moment that I'll never forget, though. It was great. It really was great. And I was after being warned and told and instructed not to give your tool up, but he talked me into it. And it was, luckily it was friend, not foe. You know what I'm saying? It was somebody from my own company. It was a good lesson.
Well, and I know your driver's license is John J. Salka Jr., but was it here or 34 engine that you received? You were given a new name for your birth certificate.
It was 11. It was there. Because when I got to 11 truck, I'm John Salka, and they're all like, no. We got 9 Johns here already. You're Sammy. And I don't know who got that or who picked it. And I was Sammy for like 4 years. My wife was calling me Sammy when I worked there, which was pretty funny. And then of course that name died along with that assignment when I left there.
Oh God, that is great. That is great. All right,
funny.
so now let's go. So you'll from there to, oh my God, Rescue 3.
I'm an 11 truck, and things are going great and going a lot of fires, and I got lucky and made a couple little grabs and stuff, and I'm there like 4 years. And I don't know what was biting me, but I wanted to do more. Now I got like 5 years on the job, and I'm saying there's got to be, and of course now I'm going to all these fires down there, and who's showing up at all the fires? Rescue 1. I see all these, like, who are these guys? No, that's Rescue. You got to be like somebody special to be in Rescue. I'm like, really? What's that about? Then I start finding out guys from 11 Truck are in Rescue. A couple of guys from 11 Truck are in Rescue 1. A couple of guys from 11 Truck are in Rescue 2. I'm like, wow. So now I put my sights on Rescue 3 because I live upstate New York. I'm driving all the way through Manhattan from the top to the bottom. I figure, hey, you know what? Rescue 3 covers Harlem and the Bronx. How could you beat that? All the working fires up there. So I made my visit up there, talked to Captain Billy Ryan, got my name on a list. That was in the old days when you had to get on a list, talk to the captain. If you were qualified, if you were, hang in there, if you had some special skills, if you knew the right people, there was a lot of conditions that could help you get in. Now, like I said, I was fortunate enough to be in 11, which had a good reputation. I made a couple of grabs, and so that was on my resume, and there I was on the list, waiting to get.
Oh, I know. I just the pull, or not pull, but the talent that you have to have, along with the procedures, like you say, talking to Captain Billy Ryan to be able to get on the list, and then to get that all these years you running your own companies and stuff that you can't pick.
And then you call her every couple of months or every 9 months, so you stop by. Once in a while I would stop by there because I had to practically drive past it to go home, or you'd watch a department order and see a guy retire or get promoted out of Rescue 3, like, oh, they got another opening, or they would even call you, So I ended up stopping by there one day from 11 Truck on the way home and talked to a lieutenant that was working. And Jack McKeon, actually, I think it was his father, was the pilot on the fireboat, the John D. McGeehan,
Right.
and got killed during an explosion out on a boat. They were fighting a fire, and the boat that they were trying to extinguish exploded and blew the firehouse off the boat, killed him, and subsequently they named a boat after him.
As soon as you said that name, I recognize that name.
Yep. So Jack said, really, how long you been? I said, it's been like a year now. I've been waiting, or 9 months. He said, hold on a second. And he leaves the office. He comes back a minute later and says, I just got off the phone with the captain. Okay, you're in. We just lost a guy. There's a spot coming open. So we'll send some paperwork down to the 4th Battalion, and you'll probably be here like by next week. That was the old days. There was no rescue school. There was no nothing. You got picked. You got sent up on an onion skin, which was a transfer. Not a transfer. It was an onion skin. It was a detail. So you just changed places. You just started working somewhere else, and you learned, and you worked with the guys and went to fires, and they just threw you right into it. You were one of the 5 guys. That was it. And if you worked out, you stayed, and you got a spot on the roster on a transfer order. And if you sucked and you didn't work out, they sent you back to where you came from. You know.
And so you're at Rescue 3. I know I'm looking at it right now. I can still you wear the Rescue 3 ring. I would too. That is just such a great honor. It's on your hand right now. But so you're at Rescue 3, and before we move from Rescue 3. I mean, you worked with some great people. You obviously you started. You went to the academy with Jay Jonas, Proby School, carpooled. He's godfather for your son James, who's a captain in the Marine Corps. You guys were riding the back of Rescue 3 with John Norman and all these other guys that were just great firefighters. And you had. I wish I could have worked for him when I hear you talk about him, but Lieutenant Pete Lund, in the ride in the front seat, and
Marty McTeague and others, great guys.
So I'm going to go back to the Long Island kid. All right, I know you want to be a cop, but now you're riding. You're on Rescue frickin' 3, dude. I mean, that's like, there's Chicago's a lot of guys. Yeah, there's great rescues. Don't get me wrong. All 5 rescues are great in New York City, just like all the squads in Chicago are. But there's something about riding for a lot of guys. Squad 5 versus Squad 2 versus Rescue 3 versus Rescue 1. I mean, just
it was amazing.
Oh my
and
God!
Rescue 3 was known. Rescue 3 had like a Big Blue. It's this big hulky looking guy with the helmet on, and it's funny because they had a picture. This big Hulk, but he's in turnout gear with a helmet on with a 3 and a big bulging eyes, and he's got an eagle by the throat that's screeching with a number 1 on it. That's Rescue 1. They had the number. It's got the bulldog under its other arm squeezing it. That's Rescue 2 with its eyes bulging out. And then it's got what the heck was Rescue 4 at the time? I'm trying to remember what Rescue 4 was. But
he's not standing on it, is he?
Whatever the other character was, Rescue 4. It's got its foot on top of its head.
Is that still? They're still called Big Blue. Is that still like they're
absolutely Big Blue? It says it right on the rig. Yeah. Now, I remember one night. Funny you should say this. I remember one night I was working, and we had a job not too far from Yankee Stadium. And who was at a game at Yankee Stadium? Like 5 of the guys from the Mineola Volunteer Fire Department that I had previously been in. I wasn't there anymore. I lived upstate now. And then all of a sudden they come walking up to me. Hey, John, what's up? I'm like, can you imagine the thrill of all of a sudden your volunteer fire friends coming up to you like 4 years after you leave the place, and now you're in a rescue company.
God.
I still remember it.
That's freaking incredible. That is all right. So okay. So we went from Mineola to Titusville. We bypassed the Nassau, cops. Okay, that whole thing, You get on the FDNY. You're 34 engine, 11 truck, Rescue 3. Now this is you get promoted to lieutenant, right?
Right. Studying for lieutenant along with Jay Jonas and a bunch of other guys there. We all did really well, and it was hard to leave, but I did because I wanted to, promote, and I wanted to move up. And I tell guys all the time, don't ever pass up a promotion for the love of the place that you're in, because there's more great places to come, So
and you could go make a difference. You could go make a difference at another place as a boss
and meet more people and see more things. So I did. I took the promotion and went to the first line supervisors training and all that, and ended up, believe it or not, I ended up back in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, right down the block from 11 truck. I was an 18 truck because I was familiar with the battalion. I was familiar that it was a good place to work. I knew they were still doing work, so I went to 18 truck, which was a tower ladder. Knew most of the guys because I had been a fireman there like 5 years earlier. So some new people and some older people. And had a great time there. Got the spot, worked there for, again, not very long, maybe 18 months. And I get a phone call from Tony Lindbergh. Tony Lindbergh was like the administrative lieutenant at Rescue Services. the rescue companies at the time were just in the battalion that they were geographically in. So Rescue 3 was in the 13th Battalion. And you got overtime in the other companies, and they got overtime in the rescue, just like every other company.
For the longest time, it's always been the 5 rescues, right?
Well, for the longest time, it was 4 rescues.
Or
And then
4,
they made
okay.
Rescue 5 in Staten Island, or reactivated it. Over the years, they had them in and had them out. But so now it was just the 5 rescues, and they started what they called SOC, Special Operations Command. And, of course, all the companies were already staffed with firefighters and officers, but they needed a couple of covering people, a couple of extra lieutenants and captains to put in the mix, so they had people to cover vacations and stuff like that. So they called me up and said, hey, you're a new lieutenant, even though you're assigned, you were in a rescue, would you be interested in coming back? Boom, I grabbed it. I left 1118 truck, and I went into SOC and started bouncing around. Well, actually, it was Squad 1 and the 5 rescues. And that's what I did. I covered in rescue, as rescue services, they called it back then, for, I think it was about a year or so. And then a spot opened up. I ended up getting Squad 1 as a lieutenant, assigned to Squad 1, which was the only squad around at the time.
It was the only squad, right, for a long time?
Correct.
The squad. Okay.
Which was reactivated back in 77. Ray Downey was the captain back then when they reactivated it, reopened it. Had been closed for a couple of years. So he was long gone. There was a different captain there. But so I went there and had a great time for a couple of years.
I remember riding out with Donnie Hayden when he was a captain on Squad 1. And that was, I used to tell him when we were teaching at U of I together, at Illinois, the Fire Service Institute, everything with him with his helmet, I used to grab it all the time, put it in my gear bag. And he would just look at me and go, Ricky, that give me my helmet back. Give me my helmet back, Ricky. And I'm like, what are you talking about, Donnie? Anyway, that old crusty, Squad 1 helmet. So, all right. So from Squad 1, as a lieutenant, you get promoted from lieutenant to captain.
Correct.
And
correct. Studying with Jay and the whole group again, Ralph Fago and all the guys. Get promoted to captain again, right up the top of the list. Out I go. And where do I go? I go back up to the Bronx. Why not head north? Squad 1's 83 miles from my house, so I headed back up north where I was only 60 miles away. And bounced around for a very little amount of time. Not interested in going back to SOC or rescue or squad because I was already studying for chief. I knew I was going to at least try to be a battalion chief. So I said, I better get back to the real world of engines and trucks.
And a lot of people don't get that, John. We talked about that. And I remember Donnie Hayes saying, well, as soon as I got done studying for lieutenant, I made a lieutenant's list. I knew I was going to make lieutenant within 2 years or whatever. I'm studying for captain. Right. And as soon as I made captain, I remember we took about a month off. We were starting for battalion. It's for those that want to, it's just never ending. It's not like in some of the suburbs, well, are they going to post a list? Yeah, they'll post it. They'll post an exam. All right, well, then I'm going to start studying and hopefully I'll make this is a continuous thing you guys do.
Well, I mean, the study certainly was continuous. The list always wasn't continuous, and them giving a test sometimes was unknown until it came out. So often we'd be studying for a test that we didn't even know was scheduled yet, but we knew that the list was 2 years old already, and it probably had 2 years left on it, and then they'll give a test within a year. So, okay, we can start studying now, and 3 years from now we'll take a test, And you don't start studying in earnest. You start studying, you dabble,
right.
Once a week, twice a week, once a week, maybe twice a month. You get together with a group or you start reading slowly at work an hour a night, and you put the books away after an hour, and you gradually work yourself up to a couple hours every shift. Then maybe you start after a year reading a little bit at home, taking a day or two a week and reading a little bit at home.
Well, okay. So all right. So you're in the Bronx, you're covering and you end up, is this where you end up on 48 engine, right?
Right. I didn't even really cover very long in the Bronx because 48 engine was already open. The captain there had already been promoted and left. Eddie Scholes, great guy. He was already battalion chief. The spot was open. So they were looking for somebody to take it right away, like UFO. Until further orders, just jump in there and hold it down. There were several other more senior captains than me that weren't interested in it because it was a pretty busy place, 4,000-something runs a year. They didn't really want to, guys that had been doing that already for a couple of years said, nah, I'll pass it up. Bory was one of the captains. He ended up taking 81 engine, and Jimmy took 51 truck, I think he took up in the Bronx. Jimmy Lucas, he wasn't interested either. They were both senior to me. But I said, sure, I'll take 48 engine. I knew Mike Wilbur. Mike Wilbur was in 56 truck. So I said, sure, I'll take that place, UFO. So I took it, loved it, put the paper in. I was the only guy that had to transfer in for it, and I got it. And that was that.
And what a great engine. First of all, what a busy ass engine company. I mean, you were averaging.
Busy.
You guys
Crazy
were
busy,
like
but it
six.
was great. Every shift went by like mad, and you never knew what you were doing from, you know, giving, some woman giving birth on the street to a car fire to a gigantic job to a who the hell knows what. A cat and I mean, everything was happening there. It was
You
great.
guys were running fires, 48 engine, 6,000 plus runs a year. Fires, daily. Like you said, everything. And I know this. I know we don't have a ton of time, but I'll mention this. You always had time, or you found time to train your people. If you didn't, you did it the very next workday and everything else. Great engine company. You're the captain there, and then you get promoted to battalion chief. All right. So
Correct.
now, because the studying goes on, like you say, from your captain study for BC. Obviously, you were covering for a little bit as a BC, right? Before you ended up.
Yep, same thing. They lift you out of where you are, and you go somewhere else. I was in the 7th Division, which was from the Cross Bronx North. That was the middle to the north of the Bronx, and then the 6th Division was the same borderline in the middle, the south. So I went down to the 6th Division, which was nice, not to have to go too far. Sometimes they put you down in Manhattan, which wouldn't have been the end of the world. But so I went to the 6th Division and bounced around down there. My one of my idols, Joe Callan, was a division commander down there. He took very good care of me. I pretty much went from vacation to vacation, meaning I spent 2 or 3 weeks every time I went somewhere in a battalion covering for the same place. And then I'd leave. The guy would come back on vacation, and I'd go up the road to another battalion for 2 or 3 weeks. So it was pretty nice. Versus you could go sometimes day to day for 2 or 3 weeks and work in a different place every day. And I put my year in down there, and I had gotten to know Frank Fellini pretty good. Frank Fellini was a commander of the 7th Division, good old-time fire chief, and he and I got along pretty well. He was a pretty tough boss, but fair. But he had demands. You did what he liked, and he wouldn't mess with you. And if you didn't do what he liked, you got to know him pretty well. And but he was a division commander that was quartered in my firehouse when I was a captain. So I saw him all the time, stop up in the office, bullshit with him. And you know what? When the time came, 18th Battalion opened. I think I called him up. I put in for it, and I got it. I didn't get it the first time I put in for it. Another guy got it. And then I got the next spot. So I ended up going back to the battalion where I had been captain, the same battalion, the 1-8.
Well, and you ended up in a great battalion. You ended up as the battalion commander. After how many total years in the 18th Battalion?
I think I was a chief for 17 years, and I think I was there maybe 15 or 16 or something like that.
So, okay, I know we're running out of time here. I jotted down a couple things that I want to ask you before we finish up. And I know we're going a little bit longer than most of our podcasts, but this is all great stuff. You medaled. You got the first bell. It's called the Fire Bell Club or the Bell Club.
The Fire Bell Club medal, yeah.
Fire Bell Club. And just briefly, I'm going to ask you. I'm going to put you in a spot because you don't ever talk about this stuff, and that's because good people don't have to talk about themselves. They leave it to me. I'll do it. You ended up with a medal for saving another firefighter's life, right? Found a firefighter unconscious or nearly unconscious.
Yeah, actually, if I put them in order, the first medal I got was the Columbia Association medal, and that was for I found a little 2-year-old in a search during a fire, and then 2 years later in '84 is when we had another job where Freddie Schwartzrock, who was the senior man, the chauffeur of the 11 truck, we responded to a second alarm, and I don't even know really what happened to him, but I came upon him. He was down in the hallway. His mask was off, and he was out of air, and I shared air with him, and the whole thing went to shit, really. We ended up in bad shape, both of us, and then they came and found us and called a Mayday, and we were sharing air and dragging us out. We had to lift him out by life-saving rope, lift him up the scuttle and to the roof, and not resuscitate him, but give him oxygen. And it was a pretty big, dramatic fire that made the newspapers and everything else. And, of course, they credited me with, hanging out there with him and staying with him and sharing some air with him, which was, for him, it turned out to be a really good thing that I did. But, as we teach everybody, you really shouldn't share air if you don't have to. You end up with 2 people unconscious instead of just one. Although I never was actually unconscious, I got messed up. So we both spent the night in the hospital in different rooms, and Mayor Ed Koch came and visited me and everything else. It was interesting.
Well, and again, like you said, we tell people not to do that, but you know what? There's a firefighter
Hard not to do when it comes up and you know the guy laying there in front of you, you know?
Exactly. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that because I know there's a long list of medals and commendations you received in all the years over.
And just to throw some training stuff in there, and I didn't give a Mayday because I didn't have a radio because I was the cam man, and cam man didn't have a radio back then. So there's a perfect example that I lived through. I couldn't give a Mayday because I didn't have a radio.
There you go. That's right. A lot of guys don't know that. And like I said, all the commendations, everything also like well over 3 decades. Okay. Last 2 things here. We'll wrap things up. If you could, best moment, best memory from the FDNY. And I'm putting you on the spot. I know there's a gazillion of them. If you could pick one, let's just say this. I'll list it. I'll say it easier for you. One of the many great memories you had. That way you don't have to worry about picking one over the other.
Well, obvious one of the best ones was, and it was after I retired, it was pinning the badge on my son when my son Brian became a fireman.
There you go.
That was cool. None of my kids really expressed any interest in the fire service at all my whole career, until a couple of years after I retired when my son Brian went down south and ended up getting a job down there. But as far as on the job in New York City on the FDNY, I mean, going to the rescue was pretty damn cool. Putting that big blue number 3 on my helmet was pretty cool. Pretty cool. I still remember it, man.
Heart pounded. Hey, last thing, advice. Talk to that Brad. Talk to the Long Island Volunteer or the guy in Titusville, Florida, or whatever. What would you say? You've lived this, John. You know what? You 40 plus years in the fire service, well over 3 decades with the FDNY, some of the busiest companies there. What advice would you give? To that young firefighter, to that young guy or gal, that's just starting out?
Well, it's the same thing that you and I have been talking about for years. Just keep pushing, just keep going, and just keep trying to get where you want to go. Some guys end up giving up, saying, you know what, this is a pretty good place, I'll stay here. And I like being a lieutenant, I don't feel like studying again. And I always tell guys, keep on going, man, because at the time I remember studying with Jay, and it was arduous. Sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes we were just sort of cruising along and we were getting good at it. Sometimes it was hard, and sometimes I'd rather be out playing paddleball or softball or baseball or in the pool or hunting or whatever. But I stayed inside and finished studying, or I missed a television show, or I missed, I didn't go to a lot of stuff. I missed a lot of rackets. But in the end, Jay and I talked about it last night. We were out to dinner last night on our 40th anniversary. We talked about it. And we rarely talked about it during our time on a job, but boy, oh boy, I got a very nice pension, and that pension is as a result of all the times I buckled down and studied and took tests and got promotions. And people ask me, what rank do you like the best? And the answer is whatever rank I was in. Being a fireman in Rescue 3 was great. Being a lieutenant squad 1 was great. Being a captain of 48 was great. Being a chief in a 1A was great. They were all great when I was there. And I never looked and said, oh man, I really love being the captain more than anything, because I didn't. I loved everyone the same when I was in it. And I never looked back, and I never looked forward. I always just enjoyed where I was,
Well, it's kind of one of those things, value today. Don't take it for granted, man. Every experience, every moment you have as a firefighter, John, you and I have said this for years, it's a blessing. It is a true, honest to goodness blessing to be able to do like the coolest job in the world. And to our listeners, we talk about a lot on this podcast, Old School. We talk about tactics, we talk about leadership, we talk about all kinds of things. And I asked John if we could just spend one of these episodes celebrating 40 years, the 40 years ago when he's starting FDNY, 43 years in the fire service and still going, still chief of his volunteer department, still go. He's got to go to meeting, later on. But John, I think it's incredible. And I'll say this, I know you'll never acknowledge this, so I'll acknowledge it for you, but you'll truly never ever know. You'll never truly know, be able to wrap your arms around just how many lives you've impacted. Firefighters, people who are, lieutenants and captains and battalion chiefs and chiefs now. Forget just the civilians' lives that you touch being in the fire service, but I think it's incredible, buddy. Congratulations on, again, I was looking at some of those pictures of you. I'm looking, look at that little dude. Look at that face. He's got everything in front of him.
Seems like yesterday, right?
And then you became a big movie. You became a big movie / TV star. I saw.
Yeah.
And
as you see, that was hardly mentioned anywhere.
But hey, for our viewers, that's a wrap, John. That's another, or our listeners, I should say. another episode of Old School. Folks, I hope you like this. This is one of those where we just want to talk about an incredible career where there's so many of them out there. A lot of you are in that you're in it right now. You're in it right now. You're either at the beginning or towards the end, or you're finished. And it's just celebrate it, live it, have fun. John, if they want to get a hold of you, email or website, what's better?
Email Chief John Salka at gmail.com.
And I'm at chieflasky at gmail.com. We want to thank you again for tuning in and for subscribing. We've hit over 10,000 hits on just iTunes in a very, very short time we've been on here, and it has been very short. And check us out there on a YouTube channel. We love you. We appreciate you. We end all our shows by asking you to please keep the men and women in our armed forces in your thoughts and prayers. And right now, our brothers and sisters in blue and law enforcement, they're going through, again, some rough times. But we always finish by also saying never forgetting means never forgetting. So be careful. God bless you, and be safe.